I'd like to call the regular scheduled meeting for Monday, April 13, 2009 to order. The clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Byrne.
Here.
Councilmember Dorn.
Present.
Councilmember Fisher.
Here.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Here.
Councilmember McCullough.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens. Here. Mayor Moeller.
Here. A lot of people said this is going to be a long meeting, and if it took Councilmember Byrne that long to say here, it is going to be a long. Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of the regular meeting of March 23rd, 2009. A motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Fisher. Second?
Support.
Support by Councilmember McCullough. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Byrne.
Yes.
Councilmember Dorn.
Yes.
Councilmember Fisher.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember McCullough.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens. Yes. Mayor Moeller.
Yes. This time, I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank everyone who sent me cards, plants, flowers, well wishes, and most of all, your prayers and concerns this last Palm Sunday. And last week was obviously a scare for me and my family. I thank you for your prayers and your concern. And as of today, going back to the doctor, and again tomorrow, they still don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm still kicking. But I thank you for your prayers and thoughts. Somebody told me the other day, he said, you had a lot of people praying for you, and I said, yeah, I just didn't know which way they were praying. But the ones that were praying to keep me must have won, so thank you. At that time, now we have some presentations to make. First of all, a proclamation recognizing April 24th and 25th, 2009 as the Lions White Cane Weekend will be presented to Don Dundas of the Port Huron Host Lions Club. Can you come to the podium, please? Whereas the Port Huron Host Lions Club, the South Park Lions Club, the Fort Gratiot Lions Club, the Wadhams Lions Club, the Rotary Lions Club, and the Sparlingville Lions Club are all dedicated to site conservation activities by aiding the visually impaired of all ages through eye examinations and eyeglasses for the needy. And whereas the Lions of the Port Huron area give freely of their time and effort to support Leader Dogs for the Blind, Welcome Home for the Blind, Michigan, Eye Bank, and Transplantation Center, and other worthy community service projects, and whereas there are thousands of blind persons in Michigan who depend on the Lions Club for information and access to a white cane or a leader dog, and whereas during the weekend of April 24th and 25th, 2009, the local Lions Club volunteers will sell miniature white canes to raise funds for worthwhile projects and continue to educate the community on the needs and rights of those lacking the sense of sight. Now, therefore, I, Brian J. Moeller, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Port Huron, and on behalf of council members Byrne, Dorn, Fisher, Lewandowski, McCullough, and Stevens, do hereby proclaim the weekend of April 24th and April 25th, 2009, to be Lions White Cane Weekend in the city of Port Huron, and urge all citizens to become familiar with the meaning and purpose of the White Cane Law and to lend support to the Lions Club projects. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the corporate seal of the city of Port Huron to be affixed this 13th day of April 2009. Thank you.
Thank you
for all your work.
Yep.
The opportunity to say something if you wish.
Please give. We need a lot of help. Times are bad. People are asking for more and more every time. Last year we did 60 pair of glasses all year. We're already up to 60 pair this year already in eye care. So we need all the help we can. Thank you.
At this time, a proclamation recognizing the celebration of Arbor Day on April 24, 2009 will be presented to Robert W. Ike, Fire Chief. Whereas Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and world. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas the Forestry Department of the City of Port Huron, in cooperation with the Port Huron Area School District, will celebrate this year's Arbor Day on April 24, 2009 by planting trees at the following locations: Cleveland Elementary at 10 a.m., Woodrow Wilson Elementary at 1:30 p.m. And whereas Port Huron has been recognized as a Tree City, USA, by the National Arbor Day Foundation for the 12th year and deserves to continue its tree planting, or desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now therefore, I, Brian J. Moeller, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Port Huron, and on behalf of council members Fisher, Byrne, Dorn, Lewandowski, McCullough, and Stevens, do hereby issue the certificate of recognition as a symbol of our thanks and appreciation to all those involved with the planting of trees in our community. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the corporate seal of the city of Port Huron to be affixed this 13th day of April 2009. Chief, congratulations. Thank you for your hard work. A few words.
Just like to thank Mayor and Council for the proclamation. Again, we've worked hard. The Forestry Department, it's a small crew, but they do a lot of work. Unfortunately, this year we've been confronted with the emerald ash issue, so we've had to take down a lot of trees, and this proclamation will help us apply for grants in the future to hopefully replace those trees. So thank you again.
Thank you. Proclamation recognizing April 19th through the 26th, 2009 as Volunteer Week will be presented to Rick Garcia, Executive Director of the United Way. Rick? Rick's not here. I'm not Rick, but I help. You're going to fill in, right? Whereas the entire community can inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take actions that change the world, and whereas the United Way of St. Clair County and the Community Foundation of St. Clair County recently collaborated to establish the Volunteer Action Center of St. Clair County to assist volunteers to connect with local service opportunities and community service organizations, and whereas individuals and communities are at the center of social change when they discover their power to make a difference. And whereas during this week, all over the nation, service projects will be performed and volunteers will be recognized for their commitment to service. And whereas giving of oneself in the service of another empowers the giver and the recipient. And whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all the nation's problems. Thought I'd hear an amen to that, but okay. And whereas the nation's volunteer force of 64 million people is a great treasure, and whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive community. Now therefore, I, Brian J. Moeller, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Port Huron, and on behalf of council members Byrne, Dorn, Fisher, Lewandowski, McCullough, and Stevens, do hereby proclaim April 19th through the 25th, 2009, to be Volunteer Week in the city of Port Huron, and urge my fellow citizens to volunteer in their community. But by volunteering and recognizing those who serve, we can replace disconnection with understanding and compassion. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the corporate seal of the city of Port Huron to be affixed this 13th day of April, 2009.
On behalf of the community, I'd like to thank the mayor and city council for this proclamation. Volunteers are a very important segment of all aspects of our community. They serve on the various boards, whether it be private or, I can't think of the other word.
Public?
Excuse me?
Public.
Public. Excuse me. I know the scholar Cabral said to give of one's money is one thing, but to give them one's time and through their heart is another thing. And we have a lot of good volunteers in this community, which make things go, and they're always trying to help make things better. And I accept this gratefully on their behalf. Thank you very much.
Presentation number 4. I'll let you.
Matt Webb, project manager from the Michigan Department of Transportation, will comment on the final environmental impact statement for the Blue Water Bridge Plaza expansion project.
Matt, just before you get started, I'd like to ask if any of the members of the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners, I see Commissioner Kearns is here, and anyone else from the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners, just would like to recognize them. Port Huron Township Board of Trustees. Ah, the whole second row there. Thank you. Welcome, and nice to have you here. And also the Business Coalition, if you would identify. Thank you. Okay, Matt. I met with Matt earlier today. He said it'd take about a half hour. I told him 5 minutes is all I get, so go ahead, Matt. Talk fast.
Well, with that, first of all, I want to thank the mayor, city council, the members of Port Huron Township, St. Clair County Board. With me tonight is key members from our team representing the Michigan Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, Customs and Border Protection, General Services Administration, as well as our consultant team members. Again, I thank you for your time, and I will do my best to hit that 5-minute mark.
Matt, before I get in trouble, Representative Pavlov is in the audience. Anyone else from the state government? Sorry, Representative, I didn't see it.
What I'm going to cover tonight is give an overview of our final environmental impact statement. We do have that document available for public review. It was released at the end of March, and we are currently in the 30-day comment waiting period for the FEIS. Next slide. The document was signed March 20th. The documents were distributed locally as well as to all of our state and federal partners the last week of March. And as I indicated, our 30-day waiting period will expire on May 4th of 2009. You can see the locations of the document for available locally for review. Next slide. Just real quick, the document is a condensed FEIS, which means we talk only about the recommended alternative and the changes that have occurred since the release of our draft EIS and the comments that we got back on that. We don't talk about any of the other alternatives. We simply reference them to the draft EIS. Hopefully this makes a smaller document and a more easily read document. And the document does follow the same type of format as the draft EIS. Next slide. I'm going to talk briefly and focus primarily on the changes that occurred from our release of our draft EIS and the close of our public comment period in December of 2007, and talk about how we got to the point where we're at today with a recommended alternative and the commitments that are included in the FEIS. Next slide. Just a brief recap of history. What we heard coming out of our draft EIS were pretty much wide community consensus that on the 4 issues that you see on the screen, that the size of the plaza was too large, additional justification needed to be provided in order to provide the justification of why CBP and MDOT needed the size of the plaza that we needed. Also, the need to provide additional documentation regarding the mitigation and enhancement components associated with the project was loud and clear. And one of the other key elements that we heard was that there was a need to address maintenance of traffic and construction staging so that we did not shut down the city of Port Huron. In our recent history with the elevating of the plaza, and now that we're going to bring the plaza down to grade, there was pretty consistent concerns about how we were going to do that. So the FEIS goes into that detail and talks about how we address those 4 key critical issues. Next slide. The purpose and need of our project remains the same. It is still to provide a safe and secure port of entry at the Blue Water Bridge Plaza. We want to, from MDOT's perspective, we want to move traffic, trade, and commerce as efficiently as possible. And so we've incorporated improvements that will allow to do that, so both the bridge and the plaza can support both the states, the local, as well as our nation's economies. From CBP's perspective, it is to make sure that we have a safe, secure border that allows them to complete their mission, which is making sure that they can support the mobility and security needs associated with a port of entry into the United States. And so you'll see that remains the same. However, we have provided additional justification as to why CBP needs the space that they need to do their daily mission. That is in the form of a program of requirements and is included and provides detailed description of how the areas and what needs are currently going unmet from CBP and how the alternative, the recommended alternative, addresses those needs for the project. Next slide. This is, and I know it's hard to read on the screen, but it's just a representative table that we broke down essentially all of the areas in both the draft EIS and the FEIS that CBP
needed to provide space for. And unfortunately, it's a bit washed out on the screen, but on the left-hand column shows the draft EIS. On the right-hand column shows the final EIS. And with this revised program of requirements that's documented in the FEIS, it provides CBP with space to meet their current mission, provides them flexibility to implement new technologies that are coming online as we speak. It provides both NDOT and CBP future flexibility to expand operations without expanding the footprint and coming back in 5-10 years and asking for additional land or further expansions. It's all self-contained within this current plaza footprint. We've also decreased the facility needs both at CBP and MDOT. We significantly reduced truck parking on the plaza, for example, in secondary, reducing it from 100 spaces for trucks down to 35. We significantly cut office space, and we significantly cut employee parking on the plaza that's contained in the FEIS. So we went back to the drawing board. We looked at both MDOT, CBP, GSA, and Federal Highway to make sure that we are clearing only enough land that we need, all agencies need to meet their core missions and functions on that plaza. And we're confident with this alternative, we have done that. Next slide. Chapter 2 of our document talks about the recommended alternative that addresses the program of requirements for CBP and MDOT's traffic, safety, and operational needs. We talk about basically how we got to the point where we're at today with the recommended alternative. We talk about when we came out with the preliminary recommended alternative last summer and some of the reasons why that alternative had some flaws. If you go to the next slide. This is the alternative, the preliminary preferred alternative that was basically came out of those discussions with CBP, MDOT, GSA, Federal Highway, and it came out with reducing the footprint from 65 acres in the draft EIS down to 57. With this footprint, we had some holes here where we were able to save residential businesses, some residences, 21 residences and 4 businesses, as well as residences along Scott Avenue. And from the footprint of the plaza, at that time, we had consensus from all federal agencies about the size of the footprint. We thought we were getting extremely close. Next slide. However, things changed from last summer to what is in the recommended alternative today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that over the next series of slides. The recommended alternative, which you see here on the screen, is the recommended alternative contained in the FEIS. It includes improvements to the Welcome Center, reconstructed and revised Lapeer Connector interchange, a reconstructed and revised Water Street interchange, widened Black River Bridge, and a modified plaza footprint. Next slide. Just quickly, the corridor improvements contained in the draft EIS are very much similar to what is included in the FEIS. As I indicated, the Lapeer Connector is unchanged. The Welcome Center is unchanged. We're still separating local and international traffic just east of the Lapeer Connector. The center 3 lanes heading eastbound will be dedicated to international traffic. The southern 3 lanes will be dedicated to local traffic, and then the 3 westbound lanes heading westbound. So that structure, when rebuilt, will greatly improve safety and operations of the 9469 corridor leading to the new plaza footprint. Next slide. The plaza itself, as you can see, the permanent footprint for the plaza is 57 acres. We ended up, after further engineering analysis, looking at how we're going to stage the project, maintain traffic for the project, as well as hearing comments from the public and those folks living in these areas following that June 2008 release of the preliminary recommended alternative, we made the decision to go ahead and clear this entire footprint. However, the permanent footprint is 57 acres, roughly bounded by this line, relocated Pine Grove, Hancock on the north, and 10th Avenue on the east. At the end of the day, we'll make a recommendation after the project is built, whether this property down here can be deemed excess property, which means if we, MDOT, do not need it for a permanent transportation use, it will go back on the market and will be opened up for redevelopment opportunities within the city. We've determined that we need those properties in order for us to maintain traffic for construction staging and during associated construction activities. A couple other highlights of this footprint that you see in front of you with the plaza. Coming into the United States, it provides 20 primary inspection lanes. That's the first area where CBP conducts their initial screenings, security screenings. The area in green is essentially the existing plaza footprint. Looking at our recommended alternative closer during the FEIS stage, it was determined that we could not affect the operations of the current plaza, which means the current plaza needs to be functioning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which basically required that we move all of our expanded operations to the north while this area is being maintained. And then once the areas to the north for CEP are constructed, we'll come back in and demolish the existing plaza. And then that allows us flexibility to use that area for future expansion, both for primary lanes as well as potential outbound inspection should CBP need it. The plaza does bring, the recommended alternative does bring the plaza down to grade, relocates Pine Grove, and we estimate at this point in time an estimated 125 residential relocations and 30 businesses are needed for the project. Next slide. These are just some of the changes, and I apologize for being a bit washed out on the screen, but this table is taken out of the FEIS and talks about some of the changes that have been included from the draft EIS to the FEIS. I'd like to just highlight a couple. The CBP inspection office building space has been reduced from 190,000 square feet down to 44,000 square feet. The outbound inspection was reduced by about 8 acres. The employee parking was reduced from 580 spaces down to 170 spaces. And we have relocated and removed customs brokers from the plaza. We determined that those would be a non-essential function from an MDOT operations or a CBP security standpoint, and so now they will be relocated off to a private location within the city of Port Huron. Other changes since the draft EIS, we have removed the roundabout along Pine Grove Avenue, and we'll go with more of a traditional boulevard type cross-section and an indirect left to access the plaza from relocated Pine Grove. And we've also widened Hancock to add a 3-lane cross-section because of the potential amount of turning in and out to the main employee parking area, as well as this is the public entrance for the plaza now for CBP's Fast Nexus Enrollment Center. So those are some of the key changes that have occurred that has helped us to reduce the plaza footprint and improve operations for the local streets around the plaza. Next slide. Also included within the FEIS and our recommended alternative, we did do a travel time delay study. This was requested as part of the draft EIS. We went out last summer and evaluated the existing delay, found that that would approximately, as of last July, it was an average delay of 26 minutes from when a vehicle travels through the Canadian toll booths to reach the primary inspection lanes in the United States. Do not account for any delays associated if a vehicle ended up in going into secondary inspection areas, both passenger or commercial. We then projected that out using our traffic forecasts and looked at what that delay would be if we didn't make any improvements, and that increases to 31 minutes in 2030. We then ran the recommended alternative, and based on the modeling that we did, that delay, the average delay reduced down to 3 minutes with 20 lanes fully staffed in 2030 with 2030 traffic volumes. The complete technical memorandum is in the FEIS. We also looked at some sensitivity and screenings analysis, what happens if you didn't have 20 booths, how did those delays become impacted, and all that is included in the FEIS. Finally, we talk about a comparison to the Port Huron port of entry to other northern borders that are either going through expansion or thinking about being expanded. And you can see that, again, CBP's area on the plaza is 47 acres. In the Peace Bridge, the 45 acres represents their counterparts at the Peace Bridge. All toll operations occur on the Canadian side at Peace Bridge. So you can see we're much closer in the ballpark compared to previous versions where we started out over 80 acres. Next slide. As I've mentioned previously, one of the items that we heard loud and clear was that we MDOT, when we construct this project, needed to be able to maintain traffic. Locally, Pine Grove Avenue north-south access was critical. And so what you see here is a commitment that's included in the document for our maintenance of traffic and construction staging goals. They're goals at this time, but I want to assure you on behalf of MDOT that we take these very seriously, and so that we will strive when we get into the design phase to maintain plaza operations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We'll maintain or strive to maintain 2 lanes on I-94 in each direction, and strive to maintain 2 lanes along Pine Grove in each direction, as well as maintaining access along Water Street and trying to minimize delays to both the Water Street and Lapeer connector interchanges. We'll be working extremely closely with the City of Port Huron and the St. Clair County Road Commission as we move into design as we begin preparing our construction staging and maintenance of traffic plans to make sure that we try to reach these goals. Next slide. Here is a high-level overview of our construction cost estimate. This isn't a year of expenditure dollar, which means by the time each of these phases of the project are constructed, we estimate that the total project will be $553 million. You can see all the phases are broken out for right-of-way construction, design, and construction inspection. Next slide. With the construction activity alone, MDOT estimates that over 4,400 jobs will be created by this project throughout the duration. And the FEIS also talks about how we propose to fund the project. The project will be funded using a variety of sources, from existing earmarks that we have available ready to be spent, federal aid that we've set aside for the project, as well as bonds that will be sold and backed by a new negotiated lease with GSA for CBP's operations on the plaza, a new lease with duty-free, and then toll revenue from the Blue Water Bridge. Next slide. This next section is probably what we spent the most time on since over the last year. We walked away hearing loud and clear from the draft EIS that the mitigation and enhancement measures provided in the draft EIS were not adequate for the potential direct and indirect impacts associated with this large, massive project within the city. And so what we did is we put together a team. We call it ourselves the Project Enhancement Mitigation Team. Had representatives from the city, county, Port Huron Township, state and federal legislators, and as well as the Business Coalition. And we began meeting monthly, covering all the topics that had anything to do with mitigation or enhancement that we received as part of the draft EIS. We met from last February to November of 2008, and in total have added $13.1 million of additional enhancements to the project. Next slide. I'm going to run through these rather quickly, and it took a long time to reach agreement on all of these, but we broke them down by category, and I'm going to summarize those at a high level. First category was access and circulation. We made a commitment as part of the draft EIS that we would include and reconstruct a revised Lapeer connector interchange, and so that commitment and enhancement has been included in the project. Next slide. Similarly, we heard a concern from the business community north of Hancock that with our original proposal, we were going to have essentially bypass Pine Grove and send all traffic up M25 connector. We heard that, went back to the drawing board and incorporated this one-way pair system that will increase traffic to those businesses north of Hancock now, and adds an additional $2.8 million to the project, but we've incorporated this as part of the recommended alternative and as part of the FEIS. Next slide. We heard a concern that Pine Grove Avenue with the relocation to the south and west would result in gridlock, and concern with added signals and how would those be coordinated. We recently did a synchronization study. We're committing to do another synchronization study and implement any needed improvements once the project's fully built. We'll go out there, we'll do an assessment, and if we need to make adjustments to any of the new signals or old signals along Pine Grove Avenue, we will commit to do that as part of this document. Next slide. We heard loud and clear that there needed to be a non-motorized pathway system as part of the project. One of the key areas was providing a non-motorized path across the Black River connecting Port Huron Township to the city of Port Huron. We have added that to the south side. It'll be a 14-foot wide path that will accommodate both bikes and cyclists and pedestrians at a cost of $3 million. We will also provide non-motorized facilities around the perimeter of the plaza. And next slide. And provide a missing link that is not there now to provide a connection from 10th Avenue over to the Parkway system along St. Clair River. We'll work with the city with an enhancement grant to facilitate that improvement. Next slide. We heard loud and clear that there needed to be a wow factor for the project. And so what we have done is entered in and developing an aesthetic design guide. The aesthetic design guide is meant to identify potential aesthetic treatments that could be applied to the project early on before we even enter in design, and those commitments will be continued throughout the design process and construction. This effort has already kicked off. We kicked off with a group of local stakeholders providing input to what improvements would best fit within the community, both the city and the township. We are scheduled to have that wrapped up in May, and as I indicated, those commitments will follow with the life of the project. Next slide. Here are a couple areas that are currently being focused on by that group. Areas along Pine Grove, the perimeter of the plaza, the walls, et cetera, the treatments, the location. This is essentially would be the exit to Port Huron. So this is a critical area for some type of a signature monument or wayfinding opportunity to make sure we draw people's attention to Port Huron and identify opportunities that exist within the city as well as north to Fort Gratiot. Next slide. Opportunities that exist along the Black River Bridge are being considered by this group. Next slide. Similarly, along Water Street, the interchange, Lapeer connector, leading into the city along the corridor in Port Huron Township. Next slide. And the Welcome Center, again, want to try to make that very public facility fit into the natural environment as best as we can. And so here is just some preliminary concepts of grading screening and landscaping, etc., so that we can provide the wow factor to the community as we move forward with the next phases of the project. Next slide. In the category of economic development, we commit to fund a world-class redevelopment plan for the city and the areas around the plaza, as well as portions of St. Clair County. We estimate that to be roughly $225,000. The RFP for that study has already been released and is currently on the street waiting for bidders. MDOT will fund that. It will be a locally led study, and that MDOT is just basically facilitating the contract, but this is really the community's plan to how ideas redevelopment opportunities may be available in the areas in and around the plaza, as well as along the 9469 corridor. MDOT also commits to provide $1 million to the city to help implement the findings of that economic development plan, essentially seed money. If the city wants to use that to match other grant opportunities or higher economic development assistance, that is $1 million that MDOT commits to help make sure that that's a plan that doesn't sit on the shelf and is useful for the city. We also commit to developing a wayfinding study to help visitors to the city of Port Huron and the St. Clair County and Port Huron Township to direct them from the plaza to key destinations and attractions within your communities. And we will fund that study, the design concept, as well as implementation. Next slide. Finally, within economic development, we commit to fund any necessary updates to the city of Port Huron's master plan or zoning ordinances that come out of that economic redevelopment study. There's overlay zones, et cetera. MDOT will fund to have those ordinances updated. And then working with the Port Huron Chamber of Commerce, our Blue Water area Chamber of Commerce, we will collaboratively work with them to fund a local visitor center. This facility could be used to disseminate local tourism information and promote tourism and business development opportunities of an international flavor to piggyback on the efforts of the Blue Water Area Chamber of Commerce. We commit up to $300,000 to fund the construction of such a facility. Next slide. Along the lines of emergency services, MDOT and the Federal Highway and our project partners commit to increase the emergency service payments that we provide to the city, as well as Port Huron Township. We currently provide $200,000 annually to the city. We will increase that to $300,000, as well as include an inflationary factor for the city up to a period for 10 years, make sure that investment holds its value over a period of time. We will also increase Port Huron Township's emergency service payment up to $8,500 a year for their secondary emergency responder service that they provide for MDOT on the plaza. Next slide. Finally, two issues that were raised are minimizing the city's Act 51 match and utility burdens, and making sure that the utilities, city has unfettered access to its utilities and municipal utilities. As part of the project, we will create a utility corridor along the exterior of the plaza. The city will have unfettered access to that during both construction as well as following construction. Act 51, we commit to work with the city to try to minimize the impacts of that state legislation. We can't waive it, but we are offering to provide the city some credit for the infrastructure assets that can then be used to count towards the city's required 8.75% of the Act 51 contribution for the project. We're also trying to get creative with the way that we fund the project, trying not to use federal aid funds within the city to, again, minimize the impacts of the Act 51 match on the city. We also commit to provide a payment to the city for any decommissioned assets, facilities, utilities, CSO lines, et cetera, that the city had paid for that will now need to be abandoned as part of the plaza project. Those commitments are also included in the document. Next slide. So that's a summary of the recommended alternative, our commitments that we make to the city, the Port Huron Township and St. Clair County. Moving on beyond environmental, we're looking to begin design for the corridor Black River Bridge and relocation of Pine Grove Avenue in 2009. Right-of-way acquisition will occur once we receive a record of decision. Again, hopefully in summer of 2009. Earliest construction could begin for the plaza. We're shooting right now for the corridor in Black River for 2011. Relocation of Pine Grove 2013, and the plaza, the earliest construction would start with 2014. And at this time, those have all been laid out so that we can again maintain access as well as construction staging so that we can maintain traffic to the city of Port Huron, through the city of Port Huron, and through the plaza itself. Next slide. So in closing, I would just like to thank the members of the city of Port Huron, St. Clair County, the Port Huron Township. You all have certainly stepped up and made a huge commitment and sacrifice of your time associated with our project. I thank you for that, and I will offer these commitments as we move forward. We commit to continue that partnership during the design phase. We brought our design project manager into the project now, probably earlier than we normally would, and hopefully that provides a sense of commitment to the city. We can continue to commit that we will coordinate closely with the city, the township, the county, the road commission during the construction phases for critical maintenance of traffic and construction staging. We commit to implementing all the mitigation enhancement measures that are included in the FEIS and that you heard a high-level overview tonight. We commit to the city of Port Huron that we will implement an MOA with you that outlines some in more detail the provisions of the Act 51 and utility payments, et cetera, details will be worked out as we get into the design phase. And we also commit to hold a forum for any interested local contractors to learn about the project, to forge relationships with other national, state, or local contractors, so that we provide an opportunity to anyone who's interested in bidding on this project or working on this project locally to provide them an opportunity to network with other contractors and to provide them with information about upcoming work opportunities associated with the project. So with that, I close my 5-minute presentation. But I do, in all sincerity, thank the members of the city, St. Clair County, and Port Huron Township for all their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'd just like to thank you and your staff for the hard work you've done. We've come a long way from when this first started. I know it started off very hostile, but seems to have come around and to a workable relationship. So thank you for your hard work. Any members of the council have any questions?
Mayor Muller?
Councilmember Lewandowski.
One of the biggest questions I get is from people that live in that area is when will the state start looking to buy up their property from them?
We will be looking at, as soon as we get our record of decision, going out and looking at appraising properties. We've already started some of that legwork in advance. We can't purchase anything until we get that ROD. But in the areas, Scott, relocated Pine Grove, in those areas, and then some of the businesses, we'll begin that in probably summer of 2009, and that'll go through 2013. We'll try to target some of those properties with the longest lead times for relocation and relocation assistance, et cetera. We'll begin that as soon as the record of decision, and probably earliest would be summer this year.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor Muller,
Councilmember McCullough.
just to piggyback on that question, I know I've had questions about when the structures are purchased and vacated, what MDOT plans on doing with those houses. They leave them vacant, boarded up, or if you just address that, so I'll have to answer the question.
Sure. Tom Jay is our real estate expert on the project.
Good evening. We'll address that on a case-by-case basis. The homeowners have the opportunity to stay in the home up to 90 days rent-free after we purchase them. So it's not like a typical acquisition. They'll have plenty of time to find their relocation residence and then move out. So we're expecting to starting to make offers, like Matt said, June, July, August, and then go through the next couple of years. But we hope that there'll be some logical order to it, and we won't board anything unless it's absolutely necessary. Just like we've already acquired over a dozen homes under the hardship. We haven't had to board them because we feel that, doesn't look real great in the neighborhood. A lot of well-maintained homes, and we want to try to keep the neighborhood uniformity as much as possible.
Councilmember Byrne?
For Matt, the local forum for the contractors and stuff, is that going to be held in Port Huron, or?
Yeah, definitely. We'll